What's up, everybody? It's your boy Magic here with RacingNews.com. Back for another edition of Dr. Miranda Previews. With me, as always, is my co-host, Dr. Miranda. How are you doing today?
You know, I've had better days. I'm sure none of you guys care about this, but I had my 24-week gestational diabetes test this morning. So you have to chug like a thing like this big, 50 grams of glucose, and then just sit there for an hour and wait for them to do the blood draw. So I was like, whatever, it's fine. Chugged it. It was fine. And then the problem was I went back to the lady and I'm like, look, they have a really hard time getting my veins every time. She's like, oh, it's fine. I'll get it. She had to stab me 4 times, twice in this arm, once in this arm. And then by the time she went to the back of my hand, you can probably see that bruise a little bit. I was like about to pass out. And so I've had better days. So if I seem a little jittery, it's because all the glucose that is still going through my body, but I'm ready to go.
My wife fully understands your pain. She went through the same thing. Listen, we're going to Kentucky Downs today. It's going to be a lot of fun. They have a huge field pretty much every single race, and there's one particular one, Dr. Miranda, that you wanted to talk about, which is the Turf Sprint, the FanDuel Turf Sprint. This is a big field of 12 plus 1 also eligible. They're going 6 furlongs, but Kentucky Downs is a little tricky because they have a long run up, and then there's parts where it's uphill. So it tends to favor horses who like to go a little longer here. You usually can catch a really nice price. And speaking of prices, I'm pretty sure you've got a price play here. So go ahead, take us through the field, and let us know who you want to win this race.
Yep. So to start off, we have the number 1 horse who is one of my personal favorites in the last few years. That's Diamond Oops. I'm really excited for him to get back on the turf for the first time since April. He is a horse that is very versatile, having both won graded stakes on turf and dirt. His last turf win, however, wasn't since last September in a G2 turf sprint. His last start in April, he finished 4th, but I think of it was a bit too far back in order to win. He historically likes to stay far back in the pack, but Flo's not going to be able to do that with some of these horses who have a lot of speed, especially being on the inside rail. If you look back at his buyers, they aren't the best on paper, but at Kentucky Downs, it's not necessarily about speed. Anything can happen, and he may have needed the 60-day layoff to rest. Then we go to the number 2 horse, which is Fast Boat, who just ran a monster race at Saratoga last month, running a 104 buyer in a G3. He also has a win at Kentucky Downs, which is something a lot of these horses cannot say. Kentucky Downs is so different than a lot of these other tracks. He has a lot of speed, and he has never ran below a 90 in the last 2 years. He did try a G1 at Belmont this summer against some of these horses, and he didn't even hit the board. However, he did get bumped in the beginning and he was 4 wide. So that could be a little bit of a reason why. He will also be coming from the clouds just like Diamond Oops. So it's going to be very interesting with a lot of these closing courses in this turf sprint. Then we're going to go to the number 3 Bombard. Let me tell you, this horse could be dangerous. There's not a whole lot of pace in this race, and he has a lot of early speed, and he could put the rest of them on a wild goose chase going gate to wire. He got second in dead heat with Front Run the Fed in this exact race last year at 19-1 odds. He's been off for about 90 days, and Pratt is staying on top of him, and he is 5 for 15 on this horse, which is very impressive. He didn't fare too well in the Breeders' Cup turf sprint, but he couldn't get the lead, and that's where he wins these races, and he definitely has a shot here. Then we're going to go with the number 4 Gear Jockey. He has been trending upwards since the spring at Keeneland. He also has a trend. If you look back at PPs, he will run a race and then he'll get 3rd. Then he'll win, then he'll get 4th. Then he won, then he got 3rd. So is he due for a win? I think that this water's just a little bit too deep with him because the talent here is undeniable and he has never won an ungraded stakes. I definitely think that he will be towards the front of the pack until the last stretch. And I think he's going to start to fall back because all these closers are going to be coming from behind. All right, and then we go to the number 5 horse, Born Great. Most recently won a non-graded stakes at Ellis Park and won against another horse in this field. Not to mention he is 2 for 2 at Kentucky Downs, which means he does love this track. He did not fare well against G1 Company last fall against Ivar, Raging Bull, but he does have experience to say the least. This is going to be another class test for this horse. I just don't know if it is enough, but I mean, you can't look past the 2 for 2 at Kentucky Downs. Then we're going to go with the number 6, Front Run the Fed. Ran a great race last year at Kentucky Downs where he had a photo finish with Imprimis and got a dead heat with another horse. But since then, he has been 0 for 4 and not really running his best races. He has steadily went down in buyers and even got claimed in June when he was with Chad Brown, and now he's with Karamori. So that's not a good sign to me that Chad Brown just didn't really want to run him anymore. I think that he's not in his best form, and I do not expect much from this horse. We're going to go with a familiar turf horse. That's the number 7, Casa. He was on a 2-win streak, winning a non-graded stakes in G1 at Belmont. Most recently got beat by Got Stormy at Saratoga at the 4-star Dave. His last 2 races were over 100, so he definitely has the ability to take this field. But just like the others on the rail, he likes to come from behind. I also want to point out that Bill Mott is at 40% this meet. I know it's only been 5 races he's been in so far as of this morning at Kentucky Downs, but Kentucky Downs is a hard track, and to be firing that well from the beginning is impressive, and that he has these horses ready to go. I also think that Casa is going to like this cutback from a mile to 6 furlongs. Then we go to the number 8. I'm going to say this horse name wrong. CM Reap. He is 0-2 at Kentucky Downs. Looking at his past performances, he has been hitting the board in ungraded stakes and optional claimers, but he really hasn't been against the greatest of horses after having almost 2 years off. When he is against good horses, like in the Wise Dan and a G3 in the past, he doesn't do the greatest. I think that this horse just wants to go retire, hang out with friends like he was doing before they brought him back out. Now we're going to go with the number 9, Who Runs the World. Girls, we have the one and only Got Stormy, who I can 100% most definitely tell you will probably be the headline photo for the Racing Dudes article and Magic's top pick. I figured he'd have his hat on during this, but he does not. This girl ran her heart out last month at Saratoga, beating Casa, running an impressive 104 buyer. The 2 races before that, she didn't hit the board, but Gaffleone also lost the crop in the Jalper. So that did her no favors. She is 1-for-1 at Kentucky Downs, but it was a bit longer than 6 furlongs. This horse is one of the class of the field, and you know that I love playing the girls against the boys, but I question her a little bit because it is a little bit shorter of a race than the 4-star Dave, and she's going to have to stalk and make a move against some of these tough closers. Then we have the number 10, Chewing Gum. Has 1 maiden win at Kentucky Downs, but in his most recent start, he wasn't even close in last month's G3 Troy against some of these horses. He hasn't won in almost 15 months, and that's even including some optional claimer races. I think that this horse wants to go longer than these sprints that Bill Mott keeps putting him in. His last race was a 72 buyer, so it's just a pass for me. Then the number 11 horse is Stubbins, was almost off for a year after taking a bad step in this race last year at Kentucky Downs. Doug O'Neill then put him in a G1 right off the bat. He did get 4th place, but I just don't think he's conditioned enough to beat this field. His last win was in 2019 in the Woodford, so I just don't see it happening. And last but not least, we go to last year's winner of this race with Imprimis and Irat Ortiz. When this horse is on, he's on, but you never know when that's going to be and what's going to happen. He went from winning with a 102 buyer last year and then getting a 74 buyer in the Breeders' Cup. After that, he won a non-graded stakes, but then went to lose 3 in a row. He is on the far outside. He won from the 9 post last year. I think he could be a possibility here, but the fact he hasn't been consistent since last September really makes me question him. So with all of that said, my top pick, I'm going to go with my gut because I didn't do it last week. If you remember, I talked about how I liked the number 4, being a winner on turf and dirt because it reminds me a lot of Mishriff, and I still didn't pick him. So with this race, I'm going to go with the horse who has graded stakes wins on both turf and dirt. And it's a long shot, like you said. I'm going to go with the number 1, Diamond Oops. I actually read an article about him this morning that Magic sent me about this horse has just perked up since being at Kentucky Downs. It's like he's at Disney World. So after reading that, I'm just going to go for it. Underneath an exacta box, I'm going to put Casa and Got Stormy. So it's going to be a 179 box. In a trifecta, I'm going to add in Bombard. In the case that this horse goes gate to wire, which could happen being one of the only lone speeds, so 1379 box. And lastly, I'm going to add in a super with Rosario because he's 41% at this meet. So I'm going to go with 12379.
Dr. Miranda, you were right. Got Stormy is the feature here at RacingDudes.com. For the full preview, go to RacingDudes.com and read that. Thank you so much for taking everybody through this field. Kentucky Downs is wild. It's crazy. Prices galore. I'm happy to see you learned from last week. You're sticking with your gut. Diamond Oops at 15-1. Even though the rail is 0-for-23 at Kentucky Downs right now, there's too much value here to pass this up. So I think you did a great job handicapping this. You can check out the Magic Mike show. We're going to preview the late pick 4, which includes this race. as well as the Calumet Turf Cup. Those are both Breeders' Cup winning urines, by the way. This is Breeders' Cup winning urine for the Turf Sprint, so plenty of ramifications for the rest of the year with what happens in this race. Dr. Miranda, let the folks know at home where they can follow you for all of your tips and insight.
At Miranda Bungie.
We'll be back next week for another preview. Until then, good luck this weekend.